I'm Jordan, and you're watching Fixbook.
So today I'm going to be showing you how to replace your tie rod ends in your Cadillac Deville. This one's a 2000. Okay guys, and here are the tools we use in today's project. I got a big old hammer, I got a big 3/8 ratchet with a 8mm socket. I have a regular ratchet, we got a 19mm socket here, and you're going to use that with a breaker bar or one of those crossbars to remove your lug nuts. You'll also need that special key. This is the cap that covers your lug nuts, and if you own this Deville, you'll know about that key. Also, we have an 18mm socket, we've got a pair of vice grips, we have a 13mm combination wrench, and I didn't show this in the video guys because I didn't run into it on the side that was videoed today. Now, I'm going to explain this real quick. You have your tie rod in here, you have a nut here, you have a bar here. If you get to a point where you can't turn the nut here, which you should be able to just break it loose, but if you can't break it loose, this 13mm will go on the end of that bar there, and then you'll be able to spin the nut and hold the bar. But you shouldn't spin the nut that much, so you shouldn't need this 13mm combination wrench. But if you do, for whatever reason, you got that 13mm thing there. Then we have an 18mm gear wrench, but it can be a regular 18mm. We have a 7mm combination wrench and a pair of dikes. Of course, you'll want a jack stand and a jack as well. And with all that said, we'll go ahead and begin today's project. Okay guys, now the first thing you're gonna want to do is go ahead and lift your car. We're gonna lift it on up, and here in a little bit we're gonna put it on a jack stand, and then we'll pull the wheel off. And it's 19mm lug nuts on there, so go ahead and take that off. And of course you have your little key with the cap there. If you've got that and you own this car, you're gonna know where your key's at, and that prevents people from stealing the wheels there. So go ahead and get your wheel off, and we'll look at our next step. Okay guys, the next thing you want to do, once we're looking at this piece right here, this is your tie rod end. This is the end we're replacing. What you want to do is go ahead and take your PB blaster or liquid wrench, something that'll kind of help you break this guy up here, is go ahead and spray the end there, and then go ahead and spray back beyond there on that rod, because we're gonna have to break this nut loose and this nut loose. And it's a pretty simple project if you don't run into any issues. Now I'm going to get this 18mm on there. I'm going to break them loose. Now chances are this stud is probably spinning while I'm doing that. So if that's the case, what you'll want to do is get you an 18mm and get them up on there. And then you'll take a 10mm. The nub of this guy is a 10. So you'll get you a 10, 18, set them up on there, and then you'll start loosening them. That's going to hold the stud while you're spinning that nut. So I'm going to go ahead and get the nut down as far as this method will allow. Then what we may end up having to do, if it's not loose by the time the nut gets down closer to the end of the stud, is we'll rip this old boot off, and then we'll get a pair of vice grips and we'll hold on to that stud there while we spin the rest of the nut off. Then our next thing is going to be getting this nut off right here, or at least breaking them loose. And we're going to want to break this loose before we get this nut all the way off and pull this guy up. It's going to be easier while it's still setting, this guy's setting in the hole down there. So I'll go ahead and get this nut down, and then show you about breaking this nut loose. Okay guys, so the next thing we got to do here is break loose this nut. This nut is bigger than a 19mm, that's why I'm using this set of vice grips here. So what you're going to do is get it hooked up where your vice grips work good, or get your combination wrench there good. Although I don't know how you'd have your combination wrench sitting in this position, so you could just use a pair of vice grips. You are going to put a jack stand up there. Can you lower the light just a little bit? You're going to put the jack stand up right there, and you're going to remove your jack, which was right here, so you can lay down. If you can imagine my body, my head going this way, my feet going that way, we're going to lay down, and I'm going to kick this pair of pliers, and that's going to break that nut loose up there. So we're going to see that here in just a moment. Okay guys, so I'm going to demonstrate this for you, and I've already broken mine loose, but basically you're going to get your foot nice and perpendicular to the pliers, and you're going to just kick it. As long as you're nice and flat up against it, it's going that way, you're going that way. Your pliers should stay on there, and you'll break it loose. I didn't have a problem with either side doing it this way. So now we've got that broken loose, we'll just finish getting our nut off here. We'll lift this guy up and twist our tie rod end right off. Okay guys, so I've got my nut good and far away on this side. Now the next thing you got to worry about is this nut right here. And I've got my 18mm, and with this guy, on the other side I had to hold him down here with my 10mm. It would look something like I would have my guy up here and I would be holding them right here and I would be spinning them. But this side really cooperated well. I could just sit here and I'm on the end of it and I could just take it off like that. And we're gonna see it come all the way off here. There you go, now it's off. Now, if you're not as fortunate, what you can do is take a pair of dikes or side cutters and we can rip this guy off. Just go ahead and grab a hold of him and start pulling them. And we're gonna get this guy all the way off. And there's a little bit of metal in here. And you may have to just kind of pry that guy off and just clear all this junk out of your way. And then you'll get it to where there's just bare bar showing right here. You'll get your pair of vice grips around here and you'll lock onto them. And then you will be able to go ahead and take your ratchet and then get them all the way off that way. So you'll just have to get all that rubber, because if you're grabbing onto the rubber, the stud will still spin because you got the rubber between your vice grips and the stud. So now, this guy doesn't look like he's up. I'm just gonna grab a 32-ounce hammer, bang him up there, pop him out, and then we'll just go ahead and twist our tie rod end off and put the new one on. Okay guys, so here's my hammer. Now, if you were just disconnecting the tie rod to do another project, you wouldn't want to hit directly on the stud. You would take your nut there, put it on the end, and then hit the nut. But we're replacing this tie rod end, so there we go. You just bang on it there, and that breaks them loose. Now, we're just going to spin this guy, and we'll be able to remove him that way. And there we go. Now, here's our old tie rod end. And we can see this one actually goes back and forth, and it's very loose. That's going to cause quite a bit of problems there. So now, we're going to go ahead and install our new tie rod end. Okay guys, now, I just spun this guy back on. He spins on there pretty easy. And just kind of lined him up, and this is a weird little seal they got going on here. This just kind of pushes up on there. And what you're going to want to do is twist this guy until it gets to that nut. You are going to have to get a front wheel alignment done when you do this project, because basically how this works is you spin this bar and that's going to adjust the toe on your car, the toe part of the alignment. And so spin this guy back to where it was. But one thing I noticed with our new tie rod end, it was about that much shorter, so the alignment is still going to be way off on this thing. So definitely get a front end alignment. If not, you're going to wear those tires out really quickly. Next, on our new guy, we got a grease valve here, or it looks like a little bleeder valve, but it's a grease fitting. And you're going to take a 7mm wrench there. We're going to go ahead and get on this guy. Don't spin them too tight. It's aluminum. This threads will strip really easy. And we're just going to get them on there, and I'll show you about how tight you want to go once you get this guy on there. So you can see I've got him snugged on there. I'm just going to take my thumb and my finger and just that right there, just a little snug, just push on the wrench right there. Don't get on here because it'll strip pretty easy. So there you go. And if you do have a grease gun, go ahead and grease it up. If not, when you go and get a line, just tell the guys to grease it up, because it does come pre-greased. So you can probably survive without greasing it, but it's a good idea to just go ahead and get it greased up in that fitting there. So now we're just going to kind of pull our knuckle this way, and we're going to get this guy fit down in there. And you kind of wiggle him, push him down until the stud comes through at the bottom there. Then we'll take our new castle nut, and this style comes with a Cotter Key, and we'll stick that guy in there, get him in there. I'll show you that here in just a moment. Okay guys, so I got my castle nut on there. Just tighten them good and tight. And I didn't show you this Cotter Key here. It's straight, and I just bent it kind of back, and you can see it kind of wiggles here. It's basically a little metal piece of thing, and it's bent, and you stick it through, and then you pull one end this way and one end that way. And what that's going to do is, if this castle nut ever decides to get loose, it's going to prevent the castle nut from coming off. So you're always going to have steering, even if it loosens up on there for you. So just bend it. So there you go. And you're going to have to line the castle nut in such a way where the hole lines up where you can stick that guy through. If you have any trouble with this, just do a YouTube search, Fixbook ball joint, and watch one of those videos, and you'll eventually see where I'm I'm doing this a more in-depth version of the Cotter Key through the tie rod and stud there. So yeah, that's pretty much going to conclude today's project. Just make sure you get this castle nut good and tight, and make sure you go ahead and put your wheel back on, get those lug nuts on there good. And again, I cannot stress enough, you have to get a wheel alignment, front wheel alignment after you do this. Just get a whole alignment after you get this thing done, because this will literally run through your tires really quickly. Because your tires, instead of going straight, they'll be running like this or like that or something. It'll be running goofy, and I'll just wear the tread right off there. So that's going to conclude today's project. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time.
Hey, thanks for watching, guys. If you would like, subscribe, comment, and all that fun stuff. And thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.